Well, Mississippi gets $30 million every year from the BP settlement. The money goes into the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund for strategic investments in South Mississippi. Now, the state didn't have any of that money the last 2 years, but going into 2026, $65 million will be available. And here to talk about the opportunities this presents, Jamie Miller, Executive Director of the Gulf Coast Business Council. Good to see you, Jamie, and thanks for joining us. So people might be wondering what various entities go into deciding where and how this money is spent.
Yeah, the legislation was passed in 2018. It set up an advisory board, which I serve on. It's an appointment from the governor and lieutenant governor and speaker. MDA intakes projects each year. They score projects. The advisory board makes recommendations to the Mississippi Development Authority. Ultimately, the Mississippi Development Authority makes recommendations to the legislature, and then in each legislative session, they make decisions about projects.
So the Coast Legislative Delegation plays a key role, obviously, in kind of finding projects that they think should move forward.
Yeah, they're limited only in the sense that they're selecting projects among the ones that are submitted into the system. And so, it's the lower 6 counties. The fund is mandated to be spent in the lower 6 counties. But yeah, among the delegation to include Pearl River, Stone, and George counties, they get together during the typically latter part of the legislative session and make final decisions about projects.
You know, there's always a debate over whether or not it's a good idea to fund a lot of smaller projects or take that money and try to parlay it into larger transformative kind of projects. And where are you on that?
You know, the Business Council has been consistent on this issue from the beginning of the legislation. We think, we use this term transformative projects. We do believe that money needs to be invested, not spent. There needs to be some clear demonstration of an economic outcome related to the project. What we've, kind of where we are now is there are some good examples of projects, but the money does seem to get kind of sprinkled a bit around the lower 6 counties. Some on public infrastructure. Again, we're going to meet with Lieutenant Governor this week, and we'll meet with Speaker White and voice our thoughts and commitment to having this money invested in economic development driven projects, creation of jobs, tax base, and not just public infrastructure or deferred maintenance even in some cases.
What should cities, counties, and developers be doing right now to make sure they're in the pipeline once the 2026 legislative session begins?
Well, the portal is open, so applications have to flow through an online portal. That portal will close the first week in August. So if you have a project that you think would provide some economic benefit, I would say go to MDA's website, Mississippi.org, get familiar with the process, enter your project. The advisory board will start convening in September. We'll have public meetings where projects will be talked about, and you can present more details about your project. And then ultimately, the legislature decides.